Hey, this is Matt Brown, and this is my Module 12 case study. So the facts of this case, principal of the school is conducting his walkthroughs, his observations, and evaluations, and is having a pretty good day with them, with the exception of one teacher, Mrs. Stevens, who is an intelligent teacher, knows her stuff, but upon observation, the principal noticed that there was trouble in the classroom. Students were not really engaged in what she was teaching or really involved in conversations that applied to what she was talking about. At least they showed little respect to her, and they just kind of talked whenever they wanted to. So the principal recorded this, gave her scores back, and provided feedback, but Mrs. Stevens was not very happy with the evaluation scores. She was very defensive, not easy to talk to, was very irate, and just really irritable. And so the principal decides that they are going to conduct another observation, because maybe caught him on a bad day. She says principal walks in and the kids get stiff, and so does she. So all right, we'll give it a second chance. So after a second observation, the principal found similar results. Now this time he was a little grumpier than the first time, because of their heated exchange, and but he found similar results. Did not find anything positive to say, so instead of speaking to her, just kind of got up and left. Okay, and so they went on to recommend that the contract not be renewed. Gave very poor scores, especially in the areas of like personality, attitudes, and teaching ability. And so this obviously made Mrs. Stevens very upset, and claimed that supervision has failed her. Not necessarily her teaching has failed, but supervision has failed because they have never given her a plan of study or a plan of improvement, no professional learning opportunities or anything like that. And so she pointed the finger back to administration and said she'd be willing to take it to court if she ended up finding it necessary. So as we move forward, we look at legal and ethical issues. There's obviously the threat of the lawsuit, which kind of ties to the no plan of improvement that was provided for her. I would consider it to be a very unprofessional conversation, and professional learning opportunities and interventions were not given to her. She heard the bad and not so much of anything that she was doing well. So to synthesize all this up, the principal has evaluated Mrs. Stevens and decided not to renew her contract, making her very upset and kind of questioning the supervision of the school. So people involved in this, the principal, who gave a poor performance review to the teacher, not just once, but multiple times. But he also did not communicate when the opportunity was there. Mrs. Stevens, who was very unhappy with the criticism, claims her teaching ability is effective, and kids don't necessarily need to be engaged constantly in order for learning to occur. This all happened in Mrs. Stevens' classroom and in the office. And through the program, evaluations, classroom management, and student engagement. So to kind of review and prioritize the important parts of the information on this, could this conflict be damaging to the stakeholders or in the community? Well, anytime there is a firing, Mrs. Stevens being let go, that would be a big deal. That would affect the whole chain. It would affect administration, the students, the teachers, and even people in the community. And Mrs. Stevens suing the school, that also affects all the stakeholders of the school. And the principal being questioned over his evaluation techniques and his efforts on follow-ups is a big deal as well. So administration is at risk on that area too. So has everybody been consulted? Mrs. Stevens had been, but was not real acceptant of it, and principal has not spoken to anybody else in the matter, given the information. And so some other things I'd like to learn a little bit more about the situation is, how have the past evaluations of Mrs. Stevens gone? Have they been that poor? Have things been that heated before? And does the school have language on their evaluation policy? Do they get multiple attempts? What does it say about evaluation forms or follow-ups or anything of that matter? And so, but based on the facts of what the case provided, I do believe I can make a decision about this. And so my options looking forward, go ahead and proceed with not recommending Mrs. Stevens' contract be renewed. Since I already filled out the evaluation sheet not to be renewed, all I have to do is turn it into my supervisor, and we would go from there. Option 2, I could provide Mrs. Stevens another opportunity for an observation, maybe one when we are both settled down and calm, level-headed, but this time provide feedback on what she's doing well in the classroom, and then offer a plan of improvement or professional learning for the areas that do need a little bit more work. And then my third option, avoid the lawsuit altogether and go ahead and recommend her to be her contract to be renewed for the following year. So in evaluating these options, option 1, not renewing her contract, it would be very difficult given the fight she was willing to put up for that and her performance score. New candidate would be hired, though, maybe one that fits the needs of the position a little bit more, but it also could potentially lead to a lawsuit. Option 2, I guess also on option 1, the administration can be at risk as well if they are not, if they're in fact not providing them professional learning opportunities and plans of improvement, that affects them as well. Option 2, I could provide Mrs. Stevens another opportunity. It gives her kind of a chance to redeem herself after a pretty shaky start, and also gives the administration the opportunity to reevaluate with after taking a step back and kind of clearing their minds and eliminate any preconceived biases they may have their minds already after the first 2 observations. It also gives me as the principal the opportunity to provide that plan of improvement, and she could take the opportunity to follow up on the professional learning trainings that would lead to better performance in the classroom. And lastly on that one, we could also make sure, if there's not language in the policy, we can make sure that future policy has language about implementing professional learning or a plan of improvement. Then option 3, I feel like it wouldn't solve anything. Keeping her on board, no issues would be taken care of. She would be the same type of teacher that the principal is not looking for, and it kind of takes away some of the credibility of the administration too. And I feel like that option is kind of just sweeping under the rug. So because of that, no professional growth will occur, and then trust is pretty much just completely broken. So in choosing an option, option 2 is by far the best choice for this situation, in my mind, because it provides both parties an opportunity to step back and try again, and then to kind of rebuild that trust and that relationship. Going back, providing expectations I would want for Mrs. Stevens to have in her classroom, or I would want to see in her classroom. She would know those expectations and try to shoot for those. And then it also gives me an opportunity to actually provide meaningful feedback and offer professional learning in improvement areas. And this also gives her a chance to see the good that she's doing in the classroom instead of constantly seeing just the bad, especially after the last observational score the principal gave her. That would be discouraging to pretty much anybody. And it also gives us a chance to provide stronger language in our school policy about evaluations. So in terms of implementing this policy, I would request another meeting with Mrs. Stevens once tempers have kind of flamed out a little bit, politely but sternly let her know that that type of professional conversation, I guess I should say the lack of professionalism in that conversation cannot be tolerated in the school setting. But also a reminder that there are some things that I could have done better as well as the evaluator and as her principal. I could have performed better at evaluation and given her a little bit more credit on that second attempt. Then I could offer her the opportunity for additional observation and evaluation. And before this one is scheduled, I could highlight expectations of the observation. And if we're not picking a set date, I can say I will be walking into your classroom at some point, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and we'll go from there. And then on that as I'm doing the observation, I could highlight the good things that she is doing during her observation. And if there are areas for improvement, include that plan and improvement or the professional learning opportunities, so she is reminded that we are on the same team, and I want her to be the best version of her that she can be. And if the results end up being the same, then a separate conversation may need to happen. If they're still hostile and not very flexible in changing up the way they do things, then that might have to be a conversation that we have to have. Thank you.